In this video, I'm going to show you how we prepare and plant chestnuts that grow into seedlings that we then transfer into our chestnut plantation. If you're new here, this channel is all about regenerative farming and how we can cultivate Christmas trees, chestnut trees, poultry, and beef all together right here in Ohio. Field 7 is what we refer to for our chestnut plantation, which is a 17-acre plot of land that we are in the process of restoring. It's historically been used for conventional monocrops, and then in early 2023, we took it out of commission to begin the soil restoration process so that we can convert this field into a regeneratively managed chestnut plantation that will have both poultry and cattle incorporated into it. During this restoration phase, we're planting about 150 chestnut seedlings each year until we reach a total of about 530 chestnuts. And right now we have about 230 seedlings in the ground, and we're getting ready to plant another 150, it kind of brings us to about 380, I believe, and we're getting pretty close to completing the field, which is kind of exciting. But we're trying to do this as cheap as possible and using whatever equipment and supplies that we already have on hand, which means that we are growing these seedlings ourselves versus purchasing them from a nursery. We already have a very small 6x10 greenhouse, so we're able to use that, but this whole process actually begins in the fall by ordering a bag of chestnuts from a company out in Oregon. We ordered a variety of Italian and French chestnuts, and then in a previous year, we ordered a Chinese-European hybrid. So the first thing you have to do is something called cold soaking or cold stratification, which is essentially freezing them over winter. So what we did was we buried the nuts directly in the ground, and then we did this back in the fall timeframe. This is so that they experience a natural winter cold for a prolonged period of time. This mimics what happens in nature when the nuts drop to the ground in the fall and then they get buried by leaves and soil over time, which helps them to stay cold throughout the winter. And then ideally you want them at 34 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit or just above freezing, and then they break dormancy in the springtime for germination. We used some old pieces of Tupperware, and then we cut out the bottom of it and inserted a net or a mesh screen to help with drainage. And then we layered some sand on top of it and then added a layer of chestnuts and then covered that up with another layer of sand. Then we put some water in it to give it some moisture, and then we covered it up with the plastic lid. We have this pile of mulch and wood chips, which is inside of a protected, fenced-in area, and we simply buried them in this mulch and then covered it up. Of course, we picked out a more shallow spot within that big mulch pile because you don't want it to be buried too deep to where it's insulated from the cold. And then we kind of just leave it there throughout the entire winter. A lot of people use this same method, but instead of burying it outside somewhere, they put them in a freezer. And this method also works. I've never done it, but I know that it can probably help expedite the process a little bit if you're short on time. And I'm not sure exactly how long you leave them in the freezer, but either way, we prefer this outdoor method mainly because it mimics the natural process of nature quite well. We ended up burying 4 of these containers, and right now it's the beginning of March, so here we're digging them out so that we can begin planting them for our greenhouse. We built these trays with some scrap wood and some metal mesh fabric that we stapled to the bottom of the trays.
I've already got a bunch made. So I got 15 bags here. There's 35 bags of soil there. So I'll just show you what we do. We get these off of Amazon. It's just a small bag that you can plant directly in the ground, and it dissolves. So I just take a mixture of an equal parts sand, organic soil, and compost. And so that mixed together is basically what we've used. We've used this now for 3 years, and it really does a good job of growing our chestnuts. So we just fill the bag up like that. And then I'm just going to set that here. Then we'll go ahead and, since I've got these already prepared, all of these have seed in them with the exception of 3. So I'm going to put the seed in. So we open this up, And that's basically what it looks like. There's the sand that's in there. And if you very gently move the sand, you're going to see the chestnut here with a root. And so that's the hard part here, is to pull that chestnut out without breaking the root off. So there's the root, the start of a root, coming right out of the chestnut. That's exactly what you want. So I'm going to put that in this soil. Just going to put it gently in the soil, and then we just reach in over here. I grab some soil and that mixture that we had, and I cover it up. And that's basically the process for planting these seeds. So we'll do another one here. So there's the stem on that one. Okay, this is another one, so I don't know where this one, there's this one. Okay, so I don't want to break that, so I got to be careful not to break it. Some of these can be quite long, like this one. So it's got a really nice growth to it. So in this case, I'm going to put my finger in here and create a deep hole and let that just sit in the hole, and then cover it back up as best I can, and then put some good soil over the top of that. All right, that one's ready to go. I'm going to do one more here, and then we will go to our next phase.
This is our greenhouse, and inside are a couple of, they're not really tables since they don't have a surface. They're more like an elevated frame for the trays to sit on.
Today is March 9th, and it's about 71 degrees is the temperature today. But then in a couple of days, it's going to get down to in the high 20s, and then it's going to be in the 30s during the day. So in the greenhouse, it should be fine. But what I'm doing is I'm just adjusting the water so it's not hard. It's just a light drizzle. And I want to just drizzle some water on these. And I'll do this every day, just for a little bit until they start germinating. And once they start germinating, then I'll slack off the water to about once every other day to every 3 days, so that I don't overwater these seedlings. But right now, they haven't had water, since I put them in the ground here back in the fall. And so I want to make sure that they've got water to help them in the germination process. They've already got that sprout root going, and so we want to see some green germination happening here, and that won't take very long. It takes about a week or so to have them start poking up out of the dirt, and that's when we know we've got some good success going. Last year when we did this, we had a survival rate of around 85%. Using the process that we're using here. And I don't know, I don't have any benchmark to indicate whether that is a good rate, whether 15% is a high mortality rate, or I don't know, sometimes the seed just doesn't want to germinate for us. So we'll just have to see what we get here.
We try to factor that approximate 85% mortality rate into how many seedlings we grow each year. So if we know that we need to plant 150 seedlings, we'll plan on growing 175 to make up for any losses, but we might also just round that up to 200 for good measure. But we also like to use the stun method, it stands for sheer total utter neglect, because that means that 15% that didn't germinate or died off somewhere along the process, Well, that was probably a weak seedling to begin with for whatever reason. And the ones that survive are the stronger ones anyway, and that's really what we want.
You can see behind me that I've got some, basically some fluorescent lighting in here. What I do is I make sure it's getting about 12 hours of sunlight. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't have any green, but as soon as they start poking out of the soil, then I'll turn the light on and I'll let that run so that I've got a good 12 hours or so of daylight. I'm not going to run it all night long. I just don't believe that that's a good thing. So though I have no scientific evidence one way or another to prove or disprove that it makes a difference or not, but it's just our preference, and they seem to grow just fine that way.
And that's all there is to it. We will leave them in this greenhouse for about a month or so until they're roughly a foot tall, and then we'll transplant them into the ground. And since we're planting in an open pasture, we also use a 7-foot grow tube, which protects them from deer. And the grow tube also acts as a mini greenhouse for the trees, so they actually end up growing a little bit faster. And then over the next several years, they'll grow upwards and shoot up out of the top of that grow tube. And if you're interested in learning more about our chestnut plantation and our regenerative process, hit that subscribe button or check out our other videos. I previously did a video showing our grow tubes and how we plant our seedlings. I'll link that video in the description below. And if you found value in this video, go ahead and hit that like button, as that really helps out our channel a lot. And otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.